This is Kentucky Afield Radio. This is Ron Rohde, Kentucky Afield's first host back in 1953. Now, I'm proud to present Charlie Baglin.
It's like seeing it for the first time to me every time I see one. It's just that exciting.
What's so exciting are Eagle Watch weekends. Have you ever seen a bald eagle in the wild? We go inside outdoors with Eagle Weekend organizers to talk about tour dates, boats, what to wear, what to bring, and what you will tell your friends when you get home. They take place along the shorelines in western Kentucky, and they are just weeks away. More next on Kentucky Afield Radio. In a world ruled by ducks, duck hunters take note. Statistics show that each year, more hunters die from drowning than from gun mishaps.
Hey, Larry, let's get started. The ducks are waiting.
I know. I just feel like I forgot something.
No, we got it all. Guns, shells. What'd you say?
That wasn't me.
We got the boat, hot coffee. What could we possibly be missing?
Duck season is upon us, and the law requires that hunters have a life jacket for each person in the boat. It's also a good idea to wear them. In the cold waters of duck season, a fall overboard can cause your muscles to stiffen, making it nearly impossible to swim or stay afloat. And that's before hypothermia sets in. So bring and wear your
Life jackets. That's what we forgot.
A message from your Kentucky Department of Fish and Wildlife. The American bald eagle. We see them every day. On money, on postage stamps. How about in real life? The Kentucky Department of Fish and Wildlife and Kentucky State Parks have 3 Eagle Watch weekends that kick off in just a couple of weeks. This is peak season. And if you go and take one of these tours or two, you probably won't just see one eagle. You could see dozens in the treetops, fishing, flying. Makes your heart pump. In the studio with me is Kate Heyden, avian expert with the Kentucky Department of Fish and Wildlife. And on the phone is Lisa Deavers, recreation coordinator in the western region with the Kentucky State Park System.
Thank you. Well, thank you, Charlie.
Eagle weekends. Now, these are put on by the Kentucky Department of Parks and the Kentucky Department of Fish and Wildlife. How do you work together to make this happen?
The Kentucky State Parks are the locations. We have Kentucky Dam Village, Ken Lake, Lake Barkley, and from the state parks aspect, we take the role of organizing the boats and the vans that go out on the trips. And then Kentucky Department of Fish and Wildlife Resources brings in their expertise, such as Catherine, on the eagles, and we have interpreters on the boats, interpreters on the vans, and they help us out with the weekends, interacting with the guests and educating them on eagles and, you know, their increase in population and any questions that they might have.
These are fun things. I have been on one, but I'll admit it's been several years. And I'm wondering if a really bad viewing day today would have equated to a really good visiting day 20 years ago. What do you think, Kate?
I think you're absolutely right. Last year we had a little bit lower counts just because the weather was so warm, and that doesn't cause as many birds to come south. And so here we are saying we had lower counts. So I think our count was 30 or 40. And so in really good years, a cold year where we get a lot of birds that come south, we can see as many as 70 birds on these boat tours.
Really? 70 birds on a tour?
Eagles everywhere.
You don't think of eagles as being a bird you can just go out and see. It's not like a hawk, as you might see on a fence post going down the highway. It's not certainly like a cardinal or a robin. You may see geese flying over, but it's one of those birds that really does live in Kentucky. You just have to know where to look.
Eagles they're a migratory species, but not all bald eagles migrate. So the birds up in the Great Lakes region, up in Wisconsin and Michigan, they come south for the winter when lakes up there start to freeze over. But birds in Kentucky, oftentimes they can stay around year-round because the lakes here don't always freeze over. So we have more eagles in Kentucky in the wintertime than we do any other time of year. They occur statewide, but some places have much higher numbers than others, like Land Between the Lakes. And that's a nice, good source of waterfowl and fish, the eagle's favorite food, and so they congregate there in very high numbers, and that's why we have the Eagle Weekends there.
So it sounds like they follow their food south.
They do. There was one study that found that their diet was about 75% fish, but they like waterfowl too, and so they need open water for a good hunting source, and so they do. They follow their food south. As lakes freeze over, that prohibits access to food, they have to go find open water.
Lisa, chime in, if you will, because I'm thinking about open water. There is a lot of open water in the Purchase region of Kentucky. Ken Lake, Lake Barkley, Mississippi River. They're following a flyway down. I don't think they're just going to just veer off track and wind up, let's say, at Dewey Lake or Sportsman's Lake, somewhere else in the reaches of Kentucky, are they?
Well, you're right. That is the most popular area for them. We have seen some at some of our smaller lakes, but that area is such an attraction. You've got Lake Barkley, you've got Kentucky Lake, and then you also have the Ballard Wildlife Management Area, which we do trips there as well. Kate was talking about the numbers of eagles that they saw year before last on trips. I was fortunate enough to do the Ballard trip on that weekend at Kentucky Dam Village, and we saw over 50 in one spot around a small water area at the wildlife management area. And that was just the highlight of everyone's trip.
Once upon
that many.
Yeah, I would imagine. A bird you never see, and then you suddenly see 50. I equate bald eagles as being something you'll see on money, postage stamp. American Eagle Outfitters at the mall. I just don't expect to be able to go on a trip in Kentucky to see these birds. I equate them with, for some reason, the Rocky Mountains, the high altitudes, and I don't really think that's the case at all. They follow water, and so they may be in western Kentucky versus being in majestic mountain regions.
Western Kentucky is just a great place for bald eagles, really good concentrations there.
Weather really does play a part in this, and that's something that visitors, attendees to these Eagle Watch weekends need to bear in mind. If you really want to see eagles, you want it to be cold. How does weather play into it?
Well, like I said, those lakes up north, they've got to start freezing over for us to get a push of eagles south. And so a cold winter is great for eagle viewing. The nice thing about these Eagle Weekend tours is that on the boat, you're on a nice heated boat. You're looking through these big picture windows. You don't even have to be cold to get a look at these birds. And so we want the weather to be cold outside, and you want to dress warm in case you want to do a little walking around on the bow of the boat. But it's very comfortable, very easy to get a nice view without even getting a chill.
I guess we ought to get some particulars about the Eagle Watch weekends. Again, give me the dates and the state parks where they are going to be held and the minute message about them.
We start off the weekend of January 11th through 12th at Kentucky Dam Village. We do the boat trips, which we have a Saturday morning trip, a Saturday afternoon trip, and then a Sunday morning trip. And as Kate said, we're aboard a yacht. This is the CQ Princess that comes down out of Louisville. It spends the month down in western Kentucky with us for the Eagle Weekend. You can sit inside if that's what you choose to do and be comfortable, or take a coat and step out onto the bow of the boat or onto the back of the boat and when you're upstairs and get a better view. We have spotters on the boat that are pointing out where the eagles are. So we usually have someone with the captain who is looking at the route we're going, and they're saying, okay, there's an eagle at 2 o'clock, and they'll tell you more about that eagle. And then our Fish and Wildlife and State Park interpreters that are on boat will help everyone find those eagles. But the first weekend is January 11th through 12th at Kentucky Dam. That one also includes the unique van tour trip to the Ballard Wildlife Management Area, where we take van trips over. Then we board a bus at Ballard, and their staff takes us through that area and you get to see like snow geese, all the ducks, the mallards, as everything's migrating.
There was an eagle's nest at Ballard for the longest time. Has the wind blown it down, or is it still there?
There's actually 12 eagle nests in Ballard now.
Well, there was one that was like right off the roadside.
Yeah. That one is still there, but I think that the trees have kind of grown up in front of it a little bit. It's not quite as easy to see. I'm not sure if they still stop by it or not, because it's much harder to view than it used to be. But yeah, you'll see adults, you'll see young there. Ballard is a great place to see just tons and tons of young eagles hanging out together.
The topic is Kentucky's Eagle Watch Weekends. We're getting a sneak preview of what's ahead at 3 of Kentucky's state parks. Music is playing, so more after this time out. I'm Charlie Baglin. This is Kentucky Afield Radio. We're back on Kentucky Afield Radio. My name is Charlie Baglin. Thanks for joining us. Talking today to Lisa Deavers, who heads up a great recreational program for our Kentucky State Park System in the parks out in the west end of the state. Kate Heyden is also with us in studio. She's an avian specialist with the Kentucky Wildlife Diversity Program. We are talking about the upcoming Eagle Watch Weekends. Weekend 1 is Kentucky Dam Village, January 11th and 12th. And where next, Lisa?
Then we go to Lake Barkley the weekend of January 25th through 26th. And that one, again, we have the boat tours. Now, when we're at Lake Barkley, the boat tours actually leave from Ken Lake State Park just because Lake Barkley is so shallow. And so everybody boards the boat at Ken Lake. And at Lake Barkley, we have the van tours into the Land Between the Lakes area. And we also partner with them, and they provide staff and vans for our staff to take guests into LBL to the different areas there to view eagles from the ground. And you do stop. You stop and get out, and they'll set up some cameras and some spotting scopes so that you can get a closer view.
So these boat tours, you're saying tours, so there's going to be how many of these through the course of the day?
Through the course of the day, on Saturdays we have 2. We have one that leaves out on Saturday mornings, and it usually departs about 8 a.m. They will need to check with each park just to make sure. And it's about a 3-hour tour. And then one in the afternoon on Saturday typically departs about 1:30. And then we have a Sunday morning one that also departs at 8 a.m. And this is for all 3 parks, which would be Kentucky Dam, Lake Barkley, and then our final weekend trip is at Ken Lake State Resort Park on February 1st through 2nd. And for that weekend, we do the boat tours only. But every park has 3 boat tours, and then each one has its own unique feature, like Kentucky Dam with the Ballard trips, and then Lake Barkley with the Land Between the Lakes van trips.
Is there one tour preferred over the others as far as being able to see more eagles?
Again, it relates to weather. Sometimes the morning trips, I think last year at Kentucky Dam it was very foggy, so you didn't see a lot, but maybe in the afternoon it may clear up and you might see them. So a lot of it just depends on the weather.
What do you think, Kate?
Oh, I totally agree. Cold weather brings them closer to the big water.
So if it's foggy, that's why you wouldn't see them. They're going to be hanging out on the same gnarly limb branches, more than likely. They're still hunting for food. They're still sitting there looking down at the water for something to swim by or float by. Right. And the reason you wouldn't be able to see one is simply because of fog.
Right, yeah, just, poor visibility. But even on the trips that have been a little foggy, usually that clears, after the first hour or so. I always think it's kind of neat to see the fog on the water early in the morning, and then usually it picks up and we see the birds, like you said, sitting on the same limb they probably have been all morning.
I'd made a note here. Will you see eagles in Florence, Kentucky, or Ashland, or Dawson Springs, or Paintsville? Are there eagles statewide and just higher concentrations of them where there's more shoreline?
They are statewide. We have eagle nests documented in every region of the state. We have them in Far East Kentucky now. They're on just about every major river and reservoir in the state now.
Really?
We have 123 nests. every year they're popping up like daisies. Last year in 2012 we documented 100 nests. In 2013 we documented 123 nests. So yeah, statewide they're just more dense in western Kentucky. And when it comes to wintering eagles, they also occur statewide, but we just find the highest numbers in western Kentucky, and so we know if we go out on a boat on LBO, we're going to see a bunch of eagles. Anywhere else, you have a chance of seeing an eagle, but you're just not sure.
There was a time in the United States where all you heard was eagles were threatened, they were endangered, they were near extinction. Those days are long past.
They were taken off the endangered species list in 2007, and so they are still very much protected. They have the Bald and Golden Eagle Protection Act that gives them special protections above other migratory birds, and then they also have the Migratory Bird Treaty Act that protects them. So they're not endangered, they are protected, they're recovered, and they're doing fantastically.
Somebody wants to come to an Eagle Watch weekend. What kind of time commitment do they need to make?
They can plan their trip depending on, their boat trips. They can make it a full weekend, or they can make it a one night or a 2 night, or even just a day. However, at every weekend on Friday evening, we start the weekend with a kickoff on our Eagle presentation, and that's a collaborative effort where our naturalist staff and Kentucky Department of Fish and Wildlife staff puts together a presentation on the eagles, and that will include information from Kate on what the eagle counts are, what they might see when they're out there, how to differentiate between if they see an eagle flying or if they see a vulture flying. Some of the other things, other wildlife they may see along the way. I mean, we have seen coyotes, we've seen foxes, of course they see a variety of ducks. Sometimes you may see, like we said, if you go to Ballard, you see snow geese. So that presentation on Friday evening gives them an introduction into that Eagle Watch weekend, what to expect while they're either out on a boat or on a van. Then they can choose their trip on Saturday or Sunday, and if they want to do a van trip and a boat trip, they may do one on Saturday, one on Sunday. But on that Saturday evening, every park has a Wild Birds of Prey program. Each park has a different presenter. Kentucky Dam Village this year, it will be Wings to Soar. And then Lake Barkley will have the Southwestern High School Conservation Club and Raptor Center. And then at Ken Lake, we have the Raptor Rehab of Kentucky. And what they do is they come in and they bring live birds. They may have everything, depending on what they're rehabbing at the time or what they've been working with. They may have hawks, they may have owls. But each group always brings an American bald eagle.
A live eagle?
A live eagle, and you get to see it up close. And then they also expand on that education and give you a little bit more information about eagles. They'll tell you the story of that eagle itself, what happened to it, how did it end up at that rehab center, why it can't be released if it can't. Once those birds come in, if they can't be released, they use them for educational purposes.
That's one thing I always liked about the Kentucky State Park system and these Eagle Watch weekends is that it just wasn't a trip on a boat out on a cold morning to see a bird. There were things going on surrounding that, special events and speakers and books you could buy. If somebody likes raptors, this is the thing to do.
Oh, absolutely. And a lot of people that we have that come to these Eagle weekends, it's a family tradition. They may have been coming for 20 years, and now they're bringing their grandchildren back, not only to learn about the eagles, but just because of the memories they had when they were younger and they came to the event. And, the Live Birds of Prey program, to me, even if you had a bad day and didn't see one out in the wild, you get to see one there. The good thing about Western Kentucky, as Kate was talking about the numbers, typically you're going to see at least one. Most of the time more. Well,
yeah. You're guaranteed. It's easy to say you're guaranteed to see eagles. They live there. They're hard to miss.
They are hard to miss, and there's going to be plenty of people to help you spot them. So, and the view on the boats, it's not like these boats are overcrowded. You're not looking over the heads of many other people.
They are warm. They have
hot cocoa.
They have restrooms.
Yeah, yeah, they do. It's posh.
Lisa, you made a point. Grandparents bringing their kids and grandkids back. That's repeat customers. Do you see a lot of repeat customers versus new?
Depending on the year, it seems to balance itself out. I don't have the numbers in front of me, but I would say it is pretty close to 50-50, if maybe not a little bit higher on the repeat customer. As we work to get the word out about these weekends, to attract newer customers as well, but they've just ingrained it into their lifestyle that, this is what we're going to do every year. I mean, we have people that this year will be already planning for the next year. As soon as we set the date, they're ready to make a trip because they want to bring their family in. And like you said, it's not just spotting the eagles on the boat or being in the van. It's everything that's going on around it, from the programs to the live birds of prey, but also that interaction with Fish and Wildlife staff and park staff on the boat and on those trips. Kentucky Department of Fish and Wildlife, they bring props that we have on the boat. As Kate said, this is a roomy boat. We limit the number of tickets sold to 75, and that's so that everybody is comfortable on the boat, that it's not too crowded. Everybody has a viewing opportunity. But they bring props. They may have an eagle talon. They may have an eagle egg. While we're going through, if we're not spotting an eagle at the moment and the boat's cruising, they'll come by and do a grip test. So you can compare your grip test against that of an eagle. So it's a lot of interaction on the boat and the vans as well.
Eagle Watch weekends are an extraordinary encounter with wildlife. I know because I have been. More with our guests still to come this hour. Stay with us. This is Kentucky Afield Radio. This is Charlie Bagman back on Kentucky Afield Radio, and I'm one of those fellas that when Christmas ends, it ends. No disrespect, but we have been celebrating Christmas since before Thanksgiving, it seems like. So come the 26th, I'm ready for New Year's. Many Christmas trees are still up. Plan, though, what you're going to do with it once you take it down. If it's artificial, I guess you'll put it away. But if you have one of the 33 million trees that are sold in the United States every year, you might make plans to recycle that tree, something that's called tree cycling. I found that term on Earth911.com. Live Christmas trees are a renewable natural resource. You can put it back into the environment instead of disposing of it in a landfill. Some examples include recycling that tree into mulch, using it in landscaping and gardening, chipped and used for playground material, hiking trails, fish and wildlife habitat. One of my favorite things to do is just gather 4, 5, 6 of these things together. Pile them up together over in the corner of a backyard or field or somewhere nearby. Make a brush pile out of them. Winter wildlife such as rabbits and some birds, they're in and out of there all the time. That is the shelter they need. To small wildlife, a Christmas tree pile is the perfect shelter from rain and wind and snow. It's like their very own resort. You can go to a computer right now and just Google Kentucky Christmas Tree Recycling. A bunch of stuff is going to pop up. Or you can watch for announcements in your local newspaper. There's always something going on in your community. And if there isn't, there's something you can do with that wood other than just putting it on a curb. We have no fishing report this week. Our fisheries gentlemen are off enjoying the holidays. In the weeks ahead, though, we have a couple of interesting shows that specifically address winter. This is Kentucky Afield Radio, and we certainly want people to get outdoors and enjoy it, whatever time of year it is. Waterfowl hunting, deer hunting, fishing, paddling, hiking, eagle watching, sled riding. Next week is cold water immersion, cold water survival. Say you're fishing, or you're on a goose hunt, or you're trout fishing. Next thing you know, you're wet. What then? The thrills and chills of winter boating. Then dressing for cold weather in the following week. There's more to it than just putting on a coat. We'll talk about what layering is all about, layer by layer by layer, what some of the good and not so good fabric choices to wear. And we're talking to a man who knows, an outdoorsman, mountain climber. So stay tuned to Kentucky Afield Radio in the next 2 weeks. Back with more on how you can see bald eagles right here in Kentucky in the wild outdoors after the break.
Kentucky's Nature and Wildlife Fund. You see it as a contribution option when you prepare your state tax return. But you also see it as songbirds and wildflowers. You can see it in clear, flowing streams. Sometimes it's so secluded you may never see it at all. But if you only see it on your PC as you prepare your taxes, that's good too. Google it and see the difference this fund makes. Kentucky's Nature and Wildlife Fund, the natural tax shelter.
Yep, it happened to me. I was in a crash. I was talking on my cell phone. Then, it happened.
I was in a crash. I was texting my friend. Then, it happened.
It happens.
I was in a crash. I was putting on my makeup. Then, it happened.
Reaching for my coffee. I was just reaching.
Then
it happened.
Distracted driving is deadly driving. A message from the Kentucky Office of Highway Safety.
Charlie Baglin back. Lisa Deavers from Kentucky State Parks and Kentucky Department of Fish and Wildlife, Kate Heyden, have joined me. We're previewing what awaits at the January and February Eagle Watch weekends. January 10 through 12 at the Kentucky Dam Village State Resort Park, January 24 through 26 at Lake Barkley, and Groundhog Day weekend over at Ken Lake. Before the break, we were talking about the amazing grip of an eagle.
Bald eagles just have an amazing grip. They kill their prey by squeezing it to death.
They need to crush bone, turtle shells, and
yes,
it's amazing what they need to do with those talons.
Exactly. And so we have this grip tester that you can squeeze to compare yourself to a bald eagle, and most people can't even squeeze 25% as well as a bald eagle can. So
exactly. We don't do a contest with it, but we do announce who has the strongest grip. So you'll have, people trying it 2 or 3 times to see if they can beat their score from the last time.
Good friend of mine is a snow skier. He lives in Indianapolis. You go up to his house, and there are carvings and pictures and paintings of bald eagles everywhere you look. The man just absolutely loves bald eagles. He also skis, so his weekends are pretty much tied up being on the snow someplace. I wish, though, that I could talk him into driving south, and it's not that far from Indianapolis, to take in one of these Eagle weekends. It would just be mind-boggling for the young man. But I don't know if I can do it. Let's say, though, that I could talk him into it. And this is a really good opportunity for me to sneak in the fact that one of those weekends he's got to miss skiing anyway because he's coming to my wedding.
Oh,
congratulations.
Congratulations.
That's on January 18th, and so, but there is no Eagle weekend that day anyway. If he were to come, what would you recommend that he bring as far as clothing, cameras, binoculars? How do you need to come outfitted?
The boat itself is, it's a yacht, so it's temperature controlled. It's nice on the inside. You do want to dress in layers because as you get to the boat, or should you decide to step outside the boat for a better view, you want to be dressed in layers. So that can be some weatherproof clothing. You don't have to wear hiking boots or anything on the boat. This is a luxury boat, but just wear something that you're comfortable in. Like if you were sitting in your car and you decided to get out of your car and go walk around, make sure you wear some layers where you can do that.
The boat is moving, and if you go outside and go upstairs, you're in the wind. And
yes.
That's chilly out there. What do you suggest?
I would suggest in your layers that you do have some type of wind-breaking jacket as your outer layer, or on the off chance that it is raining a little bit and you still want to step outside, something that's waterproof. I would bring some gloves, something to cover your ears, whether that's a toboggan or just some earmuffs, binoculars. However, if you do forget your binoculars, we always have extra sets on the boat. I would bring a camera, and you can bring some snacks if you like, but as mentioned earlier, there is hot chocolate available on the boat, and water and soft drinks, so you can get those. And sometimes they do offer chili dogs on there. Now, that's at an additional cost, but the boat captain will offer something like chili dogs or a little snack.
Chili dogs, I'm there. That chili dogs rule, especially in cold winter day.
Right. And then, of course, if you're going to be outside on the van tours, like we said, you do get out, especially on the Land Between the Lakes van tours. So you may ride for a period of time and then get out, set up, walk around, view the spotting scope. So for those, you really want to make sure that you take all of your layers with you. Again, binoculars, gloves, hats, scarves, an outer layer that is windproof and waterproof, just so that you're comfortable while you're outside the van experiencing. But then you want something that you can pull those layers off when you get back in that van, because if you're in there with 10 other people, it's going to get warm in there quickly.
Just how close can you get to an eagle? And I bring it up because you mentioned binoculars and cameras. Now, there's generally a vast difference between the lens on your camera and what you're going to be able to see in your field of view with a pair of binoculars. And you will need a pair of binoculars, I recall, but if your camera is, say, your cell phone camera, will you be able to really snap a decent picture of the bird? How close do you get?
Well, now, the boat trips, you may not be able to get a great picture, but sometimes you can get a picture with your cell phone. Of course, it's going to be in the distance, but if they're perched on a tree limb close to that shoreline and not back in a cove, you're going to be able to get a little bit better picture. When we did the trip to Ballard, as Kate was talking about that nest at the entrance, the year that we went, that was the first stop they took us to. We always try to practice leave no trace and respect wildlife and keep a reasonable distance so you're not disturbing them in their habitat. But you were probably maybe 100 yards from it, if not closer. And at one point we stopped on the road and you were probably 100 feet from one up in a tree.
There's something called a flushing distance. Kate, talk about flushing distance, how it applies to people.
Yeah, we want to be careful not to disturb the eagles. The eagles are very sensitive to disturbance, especially some of these ones have come from up north, very remote areas. They're not used to seeing people. And so we don't want to disrupt their behavior so that they might not catch as many fish that day as they usually would. So basically what we try not to do is we try not to flush the birds. Sometimes, that's impossible if you happen to drive past one on the road and it flushes. But
so that means sort of like scaring it away, or scaring it off to another tree.
Right. We try not to do that. And we certainly don't want the bird to start vocalizing in a manner that it sounds upset. Eagles don't tend to vocalize much unless it's at each other. If there's just one of them around and it starts making some noise, that probably means you've disturbed it. And so that means back away, give it some distance.
You're going to get as close as you can, but you have to bear in mind you're going to cross a line and that bird's going to fly. And that's something you really don't want to do, because it picked that place because it's hunting. It's doing the business of eagles.
Right. So when you look at the eagle through your binoculars, a lot of times you'll notice that eagle's looking right back at you. Even if you're a half mile away from it, it sees you well before you see it.
He's watching you like a hawk.
Right. And that's okay if he's looking at you a bit, but if he's really starting to appear disturbed, just stay where you're at. Don't go any closer. You don't want to disrupt that bird's behavior. It really just depends on these tours, how close you can get. Sometimes we get lucky and a bird will fly right over the boat. I remember a couple years ago, one was so intent on catching a duck next to the boat that we were probably, like Lisa said, within 100 yards of it, and we got to watch it catch this duck right next to the boat. And I don't think it ever noticed us there because it was so intent on getting this duck. And sometimes we're using our binoculars to view them in the trees. But usually you get a couple at least of nice close looks at birds just by happenstance.
You have Kentucky Dam Village, Gilbertsville, January 11th and 12th, Lake Barkley State Resort Park, Ken Lake State Resort Park in Aurora. That's February 1 and 2. That is Groundhog Day weekend.
Yeah.
So you've got to have something extra going on to honor groundhogs, do you?
Well, we don't at the moment, but I tell you what, by that weekend we will.
There you go. Are these available to give as gifts?
Absolutely. You can you can buy a gift card that can be used at any Kentucky State Park, but that would be a great way to do it. You know, buy them a gift card for the Eagle Weekend, for lodging, for a few meals. All three of the parks have restaurants that are open for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. So they could use their gift card to pay for lodging, a trip, or if you just want to, you could contact the park individually, which their information is on our website at parks.ky.gov. And there is a tab on there for the Eagle Weekend, and they'll have the contact information for the park. And they can talk to the staff there and tell them that they would like to purchase a ticket for that, and they will send them a letter confirming they have purchased that, and then they can give that as a gift.
Give me an idea what they cost, and are these tours sold separately versus being a guest at the park?
No, they are not required to stay at the park. We would encourage them to, because we love to have guests, and that will, make for a more relaxed trip. They're not, up early in the morning, or if it's inclement weather, because the boat does go out, even if it's snow or ice. The boat for the yacht tour, it is $50 a person. The van tours vary, so if they're doing the van to the Ballard Wildlife Management Area, that's $40 a person, and then for like 12 and under, the price drops. And then for our Lake Barkley trip, the van tour to LBL is $25. But the boat trip at all three parks is $50 a person. The Wildlife Management Area trip at Ballard is $40 a person. And then the van trip to LBL is $25 a person. So
certainly reasonable. All the information is on the internet. Anybody can go out there and look. Parks.ky.gov. Kate, do you know much, or Lisa, about sort of the history of viewing numbers over the years? If you could look at a graph, would that be going up, and how steadily, and roughly how many can you see today versus back when these just got started?
I do know that the Eagle Weekend counts have kind of paralleled our nesting numbers in the state. And we celebrated our first nesting pair after the decline in 1986. We had one nest in the state, and now we have 123. So I think, near the year 2000, I think we had 25 nesting pairs. And I think the Eagle Watch weekend numbers have gone up very similarly. In the beginning they were just seeing a few birds, and now we're seeing 70 on one boat ride.
So way early on, you may see a couple eagles, and that's it.
Right, and people were extremely excited to see those, and we're just as excited now. We just get to see more of them. So
we need to take a break. More in our remaining moments on Eagle Weekends at Kentucky State Parks. It is winter. It is peak season for eagles. More in a minute. This is Kentucky Afield Radio. This is Kentucky Afield Radio. My name is Charlie Baglin, and we are back in the closing moments with avian specialist Kate Heyden and Lisa Deavers with the Kentucky State Park System, looking ahead to Eagle Watch weekends in western Kentucky. What's a person going to have to face if they try to sign up last minute?
Well, there are deadlines, and the thing about waiting to the last minute is there may not be any spots available. Each trip is limited to 75. The van tours, of course, the Ballard Wildlife Management Area, we're limited on how many we can take over there to avoid disturbing all the wildlife. So we can only take 22. And that's only 2 trips. That's a Saturday morning trip and a Sunday morning trip, because that ends up being a half-a-day trip. And as of last week, I think we only had 5 spots left on that Sunday trip. And then the LBL tours, again, we take 10 per van. So we can go up to 30 or 40 on those trips. We fill those, we add on as we need more vans.
Well, I can tell you from personal experience, they are a blast. They may be a little chilly, but they are very well worth the drive and the little bit of money you spend, because you will come back a changed person, having seen what you have seen.
I don't care how many you see on a day. It is always exciting when you see a bald eagle in the wild. I've even seen them sometimes as we've driven between LBL, just going from one part to the other. And it's like you pull off the side of the road just so you can see it. It's just like seeing it for the first time to me every time I see one. It's just that exciting. One thing I wanted to point out is that people really come from near and far for these trips. We have folks from Indianapolis, so your friend could join them. We have folks from Tennessee. I think last year there was a group from Alabama. People really come a ways to see these eagles, and so it's worth the trip.
Well, I'm going to talk to Pam and see if she wants to come down, and if we can, be sort of a practice honeymoon. The honeymoon isn't really until next summer. She's a school teacher, and so we have to do it when she's not in class. I think this would be a very good practice honeymoon. What do you think, ladies?
I think it can be very romantic. Like I said, I celebrated
so
my anniversary last year. So
if you go to Lake Barkley, they have a sweet, nice accommodations, but I think you're right.
I better start saving. Now, there's a question I always ask my guests, and sort of hit you out of the blue with this. Do either one of you text and drive?
No.
It was my New Year's resolution to cut that out, and I think I've been successful.
Oh, good, so you used to and now you don't.
I know it's terrible to admit, but at least I'm an improved person.
It is tempting sometimes.
Yeah,
You ladies have been a joy, and I know that Eagle Weekends, they're going to be a huge success, as they are always.
Take care.
All right. Thank you all.
It's just dawning on me that this is our year-end show. Next year, I will try harder, I promise, to play something by John Denver. But if I can't, it's not because I didn't try. It still could happen this year, but time is running short. I like New Year's resolutions, but even more than that, I like resolutions, period, whenever you make them. If someone is resolved to be a better person, to save money, to lose weight, to go back to school, to not text and drive, then that's good. Making it so that it only counts if you do it on January 1 or a New Year's resolution is basically a bunch of malarkey. You may agree. You may have begun something new in your life 2, 3, 4 months ago, and you're still doing it. If you're serious about being a better person, then be a better person. Don't hinge it on some date on a calendar. Just do it. One thing that I know I will carry into next year are my good dog stories. There's nothing better than a dog. So we end the year with a very special good dog story from a friend of mine, Mary, who is from up toward where I grew up, and a dog named Shadow. And Shadow goes to church.
Yes, he does.
Tell me the story.
He loves people, and he always, when they came to church, a lot of times they had children too, and he loves children. So it was just a place to be around people that liked him as well.
So he goes to church, let's say every Sunday morning, and you were telling me a tale that he would actually escort people from their cars all the way to the door. How did that work?
He does. When he goes to the church, he will go out to a park when he sees a car come in, and there may be several cars, but he'll just choose somebody, and he'll meet them at their car when they get out, and he'll walk with them all the way to the door, and then lots of times they'll pet on him and talk to him, and then once they get in the door, he'll see someone else come into the door, and he'll just go back and meet them and bring them to the door.
And he'll do this until everybody's in the church. Does he go in the church?
No, he does not.
And so when church is over, does he escort them back to their cars? Because that's going to be a mass exodus of people. He'd have a hard time picking the people to walk back to the cars. What's he do then?
Well, I think he has his favorites because some bring treats for him. But he just walks the amount of people that he can. I don't know how he chooses, but he certainly can't. He does, just walks as many as he can to their cars.
So has he missed any services?
Yes, he has, because Shadow's getting older, and sometimes if it's extreme cold or thunderstorms, he just forgoes church that day.
And I guess you hear about that.
Sometimes the people of the church will call and ask about him to see that he is okay. Well, you got to also know that when the church is going on, he has a place he sets outside one of the stained glass windows while the church service is going on. But when they start to sing in the choir, he actually stands outside. He gets excited when he hears the choir starting and the music playing, and he kind of circles around, and then he howls and sings along while they're singing in the church.
Does that bother people in the church?
I don't think they hear him. I don't think they know. But the people that maybe didn't go to church, they see him down there doing this.
So this dog, for all intents and purposes, is a member of the church.
Yes, they have asked, the church has asked, that when he passes away, can he be buried there on the church property? And we said, of course, because that's where he wants to be.
What kind of dog is he?
I would say that he's a mix, but I would say a border collie.
And best friend to everybody in the parking lot, no doubt.
True. Friends to everybody. Sweet dog.
There's nothing better than a dog.
I agree.
That's a great story. May your old year end on a safe and happy note, and may your new year get off to a good start. For me, I am still celebrating my birthday week. Little something that I and a lot of folks call Charlie Gras. So if I survive that, we'll go inside outdoors again in a week, right here on Kentucky Afield Radio.